Hey, Chandler Bolt here, and joining me today is my good friend Hal Elrod. Hal is the best-selling author of The Miracle Equation. Also wrote a book called The Miracle Morning, which has now been translated into over 37 languages. Sold about 2.5 million copies. Unbelievable. And even better, which is what we're going to be talking about today, is being turned into a movie, The Miracle Morning movie. What we're going to be talking about today is exactly that. How do you go from book to movie? This is a question I get asked about often. And, this will be more of a documentary angle, but it's also applicable for people who want to turn your book into a more traditional movie. Now, Hal has been, I say this often, but he's one of the most inspiring people I know. He's just an amazing human as a whole. He's sent more customers to self-publishing school than anyone ever. He's self-published a book that sold millions and millions of copies. Just super inspiring. If you want to learn about his books and how he's done his books, we've had him on the podcast multiple times. You can go back. I think there's 2 episodes on the Self-Publishing School podcast, also on the YouTube channel. So nuts and bolts of books, The Miracle Morning, how do you go beyond the bestseller, like all that good stuff. Tons of great stuff there. We're not going to talk about any of that. We're going to be talking about turning a book into a movie and leading up to the Miracle Morning movie launch, which is coming out real soon. So I love this guy, and I'm super excited to have him here. Hal, welcome.
I love you too, Chandler. Are you're one of my favorite people. Is that just everyone? You're one of everyone's favorite people?
Are you saying I am one of your favorite people, or
you're one of my favorite people? And I'm saying, I wonder how many people tell you that. Like, that's just everyone. Like, you're just one of every person's favorite people that they know.
Not often. No. I think I'm up to 1 so far. So how?
All right, awesome, man. Check the box.
Hey, so let's dive into it. I mean, I've kind of been fortunate to see behind the scenes.
You're in the movie, dude. You're even in the trailer. We got to get to the.
I'm in the trailer.
Done. I got to send it to you.
That is amazing. I'm so excited to see this and support this and all that good stuff. But let's start from like, why even do this? Why?
Yeah.
Why did you decide to turn your book into a movie?
It's a great place to start because anybody listening to this that has a book or is writing a book, I think that it's kind of it's a paradigm shift. And so I wrote The Miracle Morning, self-published it on 12/12/2020, right? I'm sorry. That's the movie premiere. 12/12/12, right? Yep. 12/12/2012. Self-published it. I wasn't a known name. No one knew who I was, right? And so I just through hustle and hundreds of podcasts and speeches and you name it, online, everything I could do. Finally got the word out, and it slowly climbed from selling a few hundred books to a few thousand to tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, and then millions. And I think we had sold probably around somewhere between 50 and 100,000. It was 2014. So a couple of years. So maybe 50,000. So a good friend of mine, Nick Conadera, who is a filmmaker, was at my house and he was getting advice from me on what his next movie project should be. First, he asked me, Hal, how did you make the Miracle Morning book so viral? Like he had made this movie called Sharp, which was like a millennial kind of stoner comedy. And he goes, how do I make it go viral? Right. And I go, Nick, no, I don't want to discourage you. But the reason the Miracle Morning went viral is because it changes people's behavior in such a meaningful way that they talk about it long after they're done reading the book. I said, your book's your movie's entertaining, but I don't see how it can have that kind of impact. And therefore I don't see how it can have that kind of word of mouth viral sensation. And he's like, well, okay, what should I make a movie on then? Right. And so I said, well, what topic are you passionate about? You're a very smart guy, something around, how do you make money or how do you something, right? So we're brainstorming for 30 minutes over dinner. And I'm like, oh, you should do this. Yeah. You should do this. Oh, you should do this. That's a great idea. And then he goes, wait a minute. What if we did a movie on the Miracle Morning? I'm like, okay, tell me more. He goes, well, I'm in the Facebook group. He goes, I see people every day this saved my marriage. I lost 50 pounds. I got off my, I'm over depression. He goes, I see these crazy results. You're creating this worldwide movement. And at that time I had a few books that were translated. So it was starting to really spread. He goes, it's a fascinating story, And he goes, following your journey. And then if we showed all these people and how it's transforming their lives. And I go, yeah. Scratch everything I was just saying about those other ideas. Dude, we got to make a Miracle Morning movie. And so fast forward, he follows up like a few weeks later, and I'm like, yeah. Like, this is like, I'm busy. Like, I got so much on my plate right now, like someday. And then months and months went by, and he kept pinging me, and I'm like, man, I can't wrap my head around this right now. Like, I love the idea, but maybe next year. And then he called me one day, I don't know how many months, maybe 6 months after the idea. And he said, Hal, hey man, I want to talk to you. And I said, okay. He said, what's your mission in life? And back then it was change 1 million lives one morning at a time. Right. And then it grew into elevating the consciousness of humanity. And he kind of asked me, he said, well, what percentage of humanity reads self-help books? And I was like, and I kind of I got where he was going. And I'm like 1%. He said, what percentage of humanity turns on the television and watches something? I'm like, the other 99, you know what I mean? Right. Like, for the most part. And I go, dude, we're making a movie. And so that was it. It was taking what you are teaching in a book, right? Which is one medium to get across information or entertainment or, change for somebody. And putting it into a format that would reach and could reach a far greater audience, not only because a smaller percentage of people read self-help books, right, than watch film. I mean, everybody watches TV, right? Across the board, but only those that are like dedicated to self-improvement are reading the books. And of course it's, hundreds of or tens of millions of people that read books. I mean, it's a lot, but relative, it's very small. And so not only that, but it's also easier to share. You think about like reading a book takes, a few weeks, month, longer, right? So it's a lot easier for someone to go, hey, look, I know I've been telling about this book for like months, years, and you haven't read it. Dude, will you watch? If I send you a link, will you rent this movie for $5 and watch the movie? And if that doesn't convince you to buy the book, nothing will. But it'll change your life in and of itself, right? So that was what got me to open my mind to creating a movie and seeing that if I really wanted my impact to reach as many people as possible, that was kind of the only way that I could, really do it at that level.
Yeah. And it's funny you mentioned that because it's even like The Secret. I've seen the documentary, haven't read the book.
No, me either. No, I haven't read the book. There's a book?
Yeah, exactly. Right. But that book's become wildly popular because I feel like that documentary became wildly popular.
I think the documentary came out first. I'm pretty sure.
Oh,
I'm not positive, but I'm pretty sure.
The follow-on. Yeah. That's smart. So then it's an additional monetization stream, right? It's like, oh, you've got this movie that's wildly popular. What if we have a book? And then now I think they even made a Hollywood version of The Secret. I think it's called like The Secret Dare to Dream or something like that. But it's
interesting.
I forget the name of the actor and actress that's in it, but it's like
Rhonda
a decently big name. What's that?
Oh, I'm sorry. Rhonda Byrne's the creator of the Secret, but
it's like, oh, I've seen this actor or actress in other like Hollywood films.
Yeah, it's so interesting. You brought up The Secret. I interviewed John Assaraf yesterday on my podcast. By the way, he's amazing, dude. He's so brilliant. But my first question, I'm like, all right, John, I got to ask you, like, before The Secret, I didn't know who you were, never heard of you. Then The Secret came out, and not only did I know you, like hundreds of millions of people saw you. I'm like, how did that whole thing come to be? So he actually shared like she made this documentary, and then I think that she just took all the stories in the documentary and then turned it into a book afterwards.
That's smart. So walk me through. I mean, I think most people say, okay, I've got a book maybe that's already successful, and I want to turn it into a movie. And I think, there's the documentary route, there's the Hollywood route. And I think most people would say, all right, let me go find a director, or let me go find a studio to get signed or whatever. And so, and it looks like, hey, you found a person and you said, hey, this is the person that's going to film this. Like, what's next? Like, how did you go to that process? Any lessons learned? And how did you go from, hey, let's make a movie, to deciding the format, deciding how you want to do it? What's the storyline? Or are you writing a script? Like, what came next, and what does kind of that process look since then?
So it's been a wild ride. And I think more so than writing a book, it's relatively unpredictable, right? Or meaning like things just kind of evolve, I'm sure obviously there's formats you can follow of, successful documentaries. Ours was kind of evolving. Like, what if we started, how might it look? And here's how I started. So this is a good way to break this down. So it started, I went, okay, Nick's a filmmaker. He's an artist. So he had all these crazy, all these ideas, you know? And I'm like, okay. I said, look, if it's not broken, don't fix it. I said, the book, the way I wrote The Miracle Morning, it works, right? People, they read it, they love it, they share it, it's going viral. I said, so let's just stick with that. Let's make the movie as close to the book as we possibly can. And he was like, okay. I said, just visually, like, but we're going to teach this thing. And so, but then that became with, well, what is it? Just you going to be in front of a whiteboard? Like, that's like a course. That's not a movie. So it's like, okay, that's a good point. Right. So now my personal story, which, I was hit head on by a drunk driver when I was 20 years old, and I was found dead at the scene and thought I would never walk, or told I would never walk again. And so that was Nick's first. He goes, that's going to be the opener. That's going to be the hook. Like, let's tell your personal story. You're the main character. And I struggled with that. I don't like being as much as it might, it might seem so energetic. Like, I don't like being the center of attention so much. I don't like it being about me. And so I kept resisting that. And he kept fighting. He's like, no, it has to be a character. It can't. I just kept saying, let's make it about the stories of all these other people. So where I would start is to go, okay, whatever your book is, right? You go, okay, how can we tell that in story form in the movie? So telling your personal story that you show in the book. And you do that by interviewing your family members. You do that by interviewing you, right? You do that by showing B-roll. Like, for example, I didn't have footage of my car accident. So it's, you can just Google, video B-roll, and it's footage of, like, a car crashing, and then a fire department truck, and then, then a flatlining, monitor, all of those things, right? So that's telling that story. The best way to tell the story is the results of your readers, the results of your readers. And if you're just writing the book, maybe it's the results of the people that, you've shared this with through speeches or through whatever, that are actually, they've got, for me, like The Miracle Morning, I had shared it with thousands upon thousands of people before I wrote the book. And that's what got me to write the book. Cause I'm like, wow, this is changing people's lives. So we reached out in our Facebook group, The Miracle Morning Community, and said, hey, who has a story of transformation, and record a video of yourself, just 2 minutes, talking about how The Miracle Morning's changed your life. And we got hundreds of videos. And then we went through those and picked a story of a guy that lost 90 pounds, right? Incredible. He was bullied in high school. He was the, heavy set kid in high school. And it was amazing. So he had footage of him when he was in high school being dared to, like, do a belly flop off a 40-foot cliff. And he was so desperate for attention that he did it, a belly flop off a 40-foot cliff, and he weighed 250 pounds. It's crazy. It's like you cringe and tear up when you watch it. It's crazy. So that's an example of, I couldn't have predicted that we'd have that footage. So that's what I'm saying. It's organic. It starts to roll out, and kind of the story kind of creates itself. Now, another element, if you're doing a documentary, is go on a journey, right? So I'm on this journey to change millions of lives one morning at a time. That was one of the storylines. And that's one thing I learned, is the documentary has multiple storylines. It's got my car accident, and then it's got me on this mission to change the world with this book. So it was my filmmaker came and videoed me giving speeches, right? And you end up, by the way, getting, 100 hours of footage or 50 hours of footage to get a 90-minute movie. Like the magic happens in the editing, right? Yeah. But so it was following my journey. So there was video, he would come to everything that I did. He would come videotape me podcasting, getting the word out. He'd videotape me typing on the computer and posting in the Miracle Morning community. He'd videotape me giving speeches. He'd videotape me, what was the other thing that I would do? Book signings. I would do book signings, right? So basically he was following my journey. And then I got called to Paris to do a media tour. Yeah. And I'm like, dude, Nick, you want to come to Paris and film this, right? So like none of it could have been predicted. And I want to take pressure off everybody, because I know it's overwhelming to even think about, like, how would I do this? A documentary is capturing of something, right? So it's very different than a feature film where you create a story, you write a script. And that's what Nick kept reminding me, because I would get pressure, like, what's this going to look like? He'd go, look, let go of knowing. Let go of knowing exactly how this is going to play out, and have faith. I always teach unwavering faith. He's like, have unwavering faith that if you're on a mission to change the world and I've got a video camera, we're going to capture some great stuff. And then the other idea that we had, and this is, by the way, let me pause and then I'll share with you. We'll keep going. But any thoughts, comments, questions?
No, keep going. Keep going. And then I want to circle back. Yeah.
So the other idea that we had, or I don't know whose idea it was mine maybe, I said, wait, let's see if we can get in touch with, successful people like the Chandler Bolts of the world. You're one of my first people that we, right. And I said, but what if we went and interviewed and filmed the morning rituals of some of the world's most, successful leaders and visionaries and authors and entrepreneurs, right? And so we thought that's a cool idea. People would love to get a behind the scenes look at all of these, people, how they start their day. So Robert Kiyosaki, right, who I know you've had him on your show. Robert, I had met him at an event. I had given him a signed copy of The Miracle Morning thinking he would never read it. But I thought, well, you miss all the shots you don't take. I literally had it. I'm like, it was under the table. I'm like, I was at dinner, like in this group and he was not far away. And I'm like, oh, should I give it to him? He's not going to read it. Like, why am I even? And I'm like, dude, you miss all the shots you don't take. So I'm like, Robert, hey, big fan, blah, blah, blah. Here's my book. I'm like, dude, Robert, and I had Googled him before he was at the conference. He's worth $80 million. I'm like, he's not going to read my little self-published book, right? I get an email from his assistant 3 weeks later. She said, Robert has read your book 3 times, right? I'm like, what? It's changed his life. He does the Miracle Morning every day. He's doing it with his wife, and he wants to have you on Rich Dad Radio. I'm like, that's crazy. So this had happened either right before or right around the time that we were thinking about the movie. And I did the radio show, and he was such a super fan of the book. And so it hit me one day. I'm like, Nick, Robert was so fanatical about the book. I bet you he would be in the movie. And if we could get Robert in the movie, like he's famous enough, like we could name drop him.
Anchor. Yeah.
Anchor and get more people. And so I reached out to Robert's assistant. He said, absolutely. We went and filmed him. And I'm like, all right, now we can at least say, hey, we have a movie. We've filmed Robert Kiyosaki, right? So the lesson for everybody, right? I want to always make sure this is duplicatable. I don't want to be like, I had this lucky thing that you're never going to be able to do, right? Is if you get one relatively, known person, right? And then you ask them for referrals. Hey, who else do you know that, that's a known person that has a morning ritual? And, and you honestly, you can start kind of at the bottom, right? In terms of, like I would consider myself like a C-level celebrity, right? Like get a hold of me, right? I'll do it. I'll do your movie, right? And then you name drop and people are like, wait, I know that guy, right? And then, then we're comfortable to do it. But the point is you just get one. And I did that with podcasting. I started out saying yes to every single podcast and then asking for referrals when I was promoting the Miracle Morning. And I started out with nobody knew who these podcasters were. I was their first episode, but one led to another, led to another, led to another. And a year and a half into it, I started to get on some big podcasts because I was willing to put in the work and do the effort. And one thing you have to be aware of when you make a documentary is the majority of the footage will not make it in the film. And here's a little bonus tip. You have to have a movie release. Every time you film somebody, they have to sign an official movie release. You can just Google movie release and model something else, but make sure it says in there, your footage, we're going to potentially have dozens or hundreds of hours of footage. And, we can't guarantee what will and won't make it in the film. It's going to be decided on the cutting room, the editing floor or whatever. Because that actually, I don't think that was in mine and I didn't say it ahead of time. And I struggled with that a lot because we filmed people and they're not in the movie. And I'm like, that like hurt my feelings. I'm like, I feel bad. Like they gave up 3 hours of their life to film. They're probably telling all their friends, dude, I'm in this movie. And my editor, like they just didn't fit. It just didn't fit, So anyway, but get one person. And again, whether it's in podcasting or in your film, and then build on that and get more.
It's so great. And I know I gave you a hard time because you started getting all these big names. I'm like, just don't edit me out, man. There's no way I'm making the final cut. And I think I got about 5 seconds in the movie.
You have the best line, dude. You said the date that I started the Miracle Morning, that was the day that changed everything. Boom.
And it's true, man. So I guess maybe a tip if you're trying to make it and speak in sound bites. And even if you're Chandler Bolt, you'll make it in there if you
edify the hell out of use their movie title. and say it's the greatest thing ever. Yeah, that's right.
The day that changed everything. There's so many great takeaways in here. We talk about, I love that you mentioned this. We call this like the rungs of the ladder when you're going after publicity, podcast, or like when I did my summit back in the day, very similar. It's like you get your anchor person. And so you got C's, B's, A's, and you just keep working your way up rungs of the ladder to get bigger and bigger names in that. So I think that's a great takeaway. I think I love the part that you said, the storyline. And you don't have to write out the script, but you do have to know that it's a story, which I think is very different from the way that most people write nonfiction books. So it's actually, in a lot of ways, whether it's a documentary or a movie, it's going to more closely resemble a fiction book. Like you're telling a story.
Sure.
And so you have characters, you have character development, you have an overarching plot, and whether that's designed at the beginning or at the end, like that you have to have a through line or come to a through line. And so kind of speaking of that, like, because I've kind of seen behind the scenes, like, and I know you guys have went through multiple iterations and said, oh, cool, let's change it this way. Let's make it this way. And it's like, it just keeps improving and keeps getting better. So how does the through line in the movie now look compared to the first cut? And what are the iterations or improvements and things that you learned along the way?
Yeah. So the first cut was going to be, right, the miracle morning, which by the way, is my story. So I am the through line, like I am the character, and I had to get over my insecurity around making it about me and just go, Nick was like, dude, you're the character, like this is about you and your movement and your mission and your book and all this, right? So you're the through line. So I was always the through line, right? It was my story. And I kept showing back up throughout the movie. Now the movie started out, the original vision was, basically duplicate the book. Don't fix what isn't broken, right? That book, that model works. So let's make it as close as we can to the book. And then the bonus was going to be, and we'll show all these world famous people. And by the way, going up the rungs of the ladder, right now it's got Brendan Burchard, Layla Ali, Muhammad Ali's daughter, Robin Sharma, Lewis Howes, Mel Robbins, Robert Kiyosaki, Chandler Bolt, Pat Flynn, John Lee Dumas, Brian Johnson, just, the list goes on and on. And the other thing, I do want to say this. I think this is important. My new book is The Miracle Equation, right? And I think did we talk about that on anything yet? Your interviews?
Yeah, we did.
Okay.
Yeah.
So here's the point. The Miracle Equation is the two decisions that move your biggest goals from possible to probable to inevitable. And the two decisions are, number one, unwavering faith. Number two, extraordinary effort. So in other words, when you get clear on what is the outcome, the miracle, which by the way, getting these people in the movie, that's a miracle. Like making a movie is a miracle. It's what I define a miracle as any meaningful, measurable outcome that's beyond the realm of what you believe is probable for you. Thus, when you achieve that seemingly impossible outcome, it feels like a freaking miracle. So the point is, part of the reason I call it the miracle equation is because the way things unfold, you cannot plan or predict. Doesn't matter if you're going for a sales goal, trying to sell 1 million books, like you could have never predicted the chance encounters and coincidences and little miracles that show up in your world. I was, for example, at Genius Network, and I knew that Robin Sharma and Teresa Larico were friends. And Teresa, we were talking, and she's like, oh yeah, tell Robin I said hi if you see him. I was like, Robin's here? She goes, yeah. And I go, oh, I said, dude, do you think you could text him and ask if I could film him? Because our filmmaker's already here to do, like all these little coincidences. My wife was like, why don't you reach out to that Vision Lakiani guy? You love his meditation. Maybe he'd say yes to the movie. And he did. Just all these little random coincidences, they all fell into place. And so the unwavering faith piece is so important that you just go, you know what? I'm going to release attachment to the outcome and surrender and have unwavering faith that this thing, if I commit and I put forth extraordinary effort, do everything in my power, it's going to work out. It's going to work out, right? And that belief not only serves you to keep moving forward, it's what enables you to earn the luck that comes your way, So what was your question again that I didn't answer?
We were just talking about multiple cuts. Now that's so great. But, and so maybe we'll skip ahead a little bit. Like, so the story arc changed. And if you have any final thoughts on kind of how that changed, and then really, how do you go from, cause I want to do a final couple questions on production and then really shift towards distribution and marketing for kind of the home stretch here. So how do you go from, all right, the story arc is changing and it's evolving. And then, I know you went out and kind of found some people like, hey, I want this person to be a director or this person to be like an advocate for the film. What were the other steps to get to finished product? Like, I'm ready to market this and kind of put this out in the world.
Got it. So I'll finish the story, the way the through line changed. 2.5 years into production, I was diagnosed with cancer, and I was given a 30% chance of surviving, which is a 70% chance of dying if you're a pessimist, right? And but in all seriousness, right? I have kids, I have a wife, and I have a life, and so I called our director, and I said, Nick, dude, I have some crazy news. I was diagnosed with cancer, and it's a really rare aggressive cancer. They're telling me I've got months to live if I don't miraculously beat this thing with, chemo and natural stuff. And I said, so the movie's on hold until further, I don't know if we're even going to finish it. And he said, Hal, man, I'm so sorry. And, I'll kind of speak. I mean, yes, he was really considerate, but he goes, Hal, basically his conclusion was, Hal, A, you're going to beat this, and B, we're going to film you doing it. And I was like, what? And he goes, Hal, this is a story about you and this mission you're on. He goes, talk about throwing a wrench in the character's plans. He's like, not to, be like, but like, he's like, he goes, you're going to beat it, and we're going to film you beating it. And I'm like, dude, okay. Right. So again, you can't predict that. You can't predict it. You can't. And by the way, the cancer is the best thing that ever happened in the movie, because the first hour of the movie, as it was originally designed, it's powerful. It's open, but it doesn't even hold a candle to the last 30 minutes when you're literally in the hospital with me getting chemo. I'm in tears because I've been on pain management for 10 days. Like, it's insane. So that's how the theme of the movie, start a miracle morning. Like that's the first hour. And then the final theme is, hey, no matter what happens to you, you are in control of your inner world. You can be happy and grateful even in the midst of the most difficult time in your life. And that's why I really feel like the film was delayed over and over from cancer and all these things, but now it's being released post-COVID when the world's, feeling out of control, right? Because things are so out of control. And this movie goes, wow, this guy had no control over what was going on in his world. It was like he got cancer, but he was still smiling and grateful and optimistic and productive and did his miracle morning. And right. Like, so I really feel like it's going to empower people in that way. So tell me again, what's the question going into production and all that?
This is great. This is awesome. Let's switch gears. Moving towards the marketing, production, promotion, all that stuff. I guess I'll ask a big picture question, and I want to drill into like distribution, marketing, all that stuff. I'm super curious about all that. Big picture, like how do you make money off the movie? How does this fit in with your overall business? How does this fit in with the book and with your book business? Like, what does this look like? What's the business of making a movie and releasing a movie?
So the way that we're going to monetize the movie is we're doing a world premiere on 12/12/2020. And we were going to do a theater release back in May, and then COVID hit. And thank goodness we hadn't, committed to stuff and all that. But anyway, so we shifted gears, and during that time we re-edited the entire film. So it's actually 100 times better than it was when we were going to launch it. So 12/12/2020, we're doing an online launch, which is actually better because the Miracle Morning's published in 37 languages, 100 countries. So it's actually now not everybody can fly out to the States and go do a theater, but they can watch it in Australia. They can watch it in UK. They can watch it in Brazil. They can watch it, we have subtitles for these different territories. So it's $19.95, and it's going to be a full experience. We decided to do not just show the movie, but there's a welcome video from me. Then it shows the full feature film, which is, a little over 90 minutes. And then it's it follows immediately into an implementation training from me. It's like, hey, you just watched the movie. You're all inspired. Here, let me break it down how you're going to start tomorrow. And then it goes into a live Q&A with me and our movie team, our director, all of that. And then we launch people into a 30-day challenge. So it's really cool. It's like a full-blown, like not only just watching the movie and being inspired, but we're going to hold your hand to make sure you actually start doing this Miracle Morning thing if you've never done it before. So it's $19.95 per ticket. My goal was to sell 10,000 tickets to the live premiere, which would have been $200,000, which the movie costs more than that, which I yeah, we can talk about the finances in a second. We need to, but $200,000. Now my team came back and they crunched numbers and they said, Hal, we think that we can get 100,000 people to the premiere. And like, I kind of scrunched my head. I'm like, I can't even get there. Like that's how I've never gotten 100,000 people to do anything. Not in a day, right? Like over 5 years, not in a day. I said, but I'm like, I can't, I'm the leader of the team. I can't tell them no. I can't be like, like, all right, we're going to go that big. Okay. So that's what we're shooting for, and if we do that, it's $2 million, which is, that's a game changer, right? I'm taking next year off, but I'm buying my mom a house, right. I'm doing some rapper stuff.
That's awesome.
But anyway, so that's how we're monetizing initially. And then it's immediately going to be available on Amazon, both DVD and, Prime Video. So you can stream it. And so then because the Miracle Morning is self-published and it sells on Amazon, we want to leverage the algorithms so the people that buy the book, it starts to show the movie as well. So because of that, we are going exclusively on Amazon for like at least a month. And then we'll drive people to, hey, do you love the movie? You can go own it now, right? And then it'll be available on my website. You'll be able to buy it, and we use Vimeo Vimeo pays you 90% of the profits when you play the movie on your site. So people can buy it, through a shopping cart or whatever, play it right there. It'll also be in iTunes, Google Play, and that's all self-distribution. You can Google, Bitmax is the service we're using, BITMAX, that you submit the film to them. They check it for quality control, and then they put it out to all these different platforms. And then Amazon Prime Video is its own animal, and you go directly through them. And you mentioned distribution. Here's what I want to share. It's the same thing. A lot of this is the same as books. Like everything you teach with a book, marketing, promotion, distribution.
Yes.
You do, and luckily that's what I got. Like I don't know how to do anything with a film, but luckily I go, well, all it is just a book in film format, right? I'm going to market it the same way. And so, but when I was writing The Miracle Morning, and I've said this on every interview we've done, right? I thought, I need a publisher so that this book is a real book and it's taken seriously, right? And back then you have to realize too, this was 2010, 11, 12 that I'm looking at this. I'm like, back then self-publishing was kind of like faux pas. It was like, oh, you only do that if you can't get your book published. But even then, the research I did, I realized that, wait a minute, if you get a publisher, good luck getting a publisher, you put all the effort into getting one. If you do, and you don't have a giant 100,000 person email list, they're not going to pay you any money. They're just going to go, hey, you're lucky that we're giving you the time of day. Then they're going to keep like 80% of your royalties. Versus self-publishing, keeping 70% of your royalties, not the publisher, you, right? And then what I realize is that with a publisher, same as a film distributor, right? This is what I'm tying this in. They don't do very much for you. Think about it. If you are a publisher, we'll start with the publisher, and same with the film distributor, and you've got, you've brought on, 20 clients this year, right? And these 8 clients are going to crush it for you because they have huge platforms and they're known authors, and right, they're getting all the money up front and they're getting the marketing dollars on the back end because they are a sure bet. The publisher took a chance on you by paying you, $2,000 advance to self-publish your book. It was more a favor to you because they thought there might be a chance that you would work your ass off and sell that book because that's what you have to do. They don't do anything for you, right? I don't say anything. They do very little unless you have the platform. Now, I traditionally published my last book because I had an email list of 500,000 people, and the publisher's like, oh, okay, now we'll listen to you. Now we'll give you money, right? Then it was worth it to give that a chance. And I still haven't decided if I'm going, my next book, I'm not going to sign with a publisher until it's written. I'm going to write it, and then I'm going to shop it around and decide, will I make more money self-publishing or traditional? And I need to give you guys some numbers just to make this very clear. If I would have gotten a publisher for The Miracle Morning, I maybe would have gotten a $10,000 advance, maybe. I wrote myself a check the way Jim Carrey did that said, and I printed it on the computer. It said from a major publishing house in New York City, right? And it was advance for The Miracle Morning book, $100,000. That was on my vision board for years. And that was a dream. If I would have gotten $100,000, That would have been a dream. Well, I self-published. So I wrote that when I was writing the book before I decided, self-published. I'll let you guys do the math. The Miracle Morning has sold like 1 million copies in the US at an average of like $7 a copy because, right? Yeah, like about $7 a copy. And then the other 1.5 million are all different because those are traditionally published in 37 languages. But the point is, the self-published Miracle Morning book has earned millions of dollars. And if I would have traditionally published, I would have earned maybe a few $100,000, right? They would have kept all those royalties, or the majority of them, you know? And so when I decided to come out with the movie, I actually didn't, I went back to the same thinking, like, well, maybe I should get a distributor. I don't know how to distribute a movie. So I started talking to all these distributors and getting, you know, they would send me proposals, and I realized, oh, wait a minute. This is the same outdated model that the publishing houses in New York are using, right? That only makes sense for the small percentage of authors that have huge platforms. And even with a big platform, they want to keep all the royalties. I go, so wait a minute, I'm bringing the film, I'm bringing the platform, and there's all these self-distribution channels now for films, just like there are for movies. You can rent it on YouTube, you can rent it on iTunes. There's no gatekeepers for any of it. Prime Direct, Amazon Prime. There's no gatekeeper. The only gatekeeper is Netflix and Hulu. There's a couple of streaming services, but even if you get a deal on Netflix, again, they're going to pay you pennies on the dollar, and then they're going to show your movie, right? So Netflix is the last line of, like, that's our last focus. Once we've marketed and self-distributed the film, and by the way, the last thing I want to say on this is so important. When I decided to self-publish The Miracle Morning instead of traditionally publish it, I thought, okay, the research I've done has shown me that I have to do all the marketing anyway. Like the publishing house, they're counting on me to market my book. I've got to go hustle and grind and do interviews anyway. So if I'm doing the work anyway, I want to keep the royalties. That seems more fair. And so I thought, this was my Hail Mary. I go, you know what? I'm so committed to this book, changing millions of lives. I'm going to go out there and work my butt off until I've sold so many copies and reached so many people that traditional publishers start hearing about it, and they come knocking on my door and they're like, hey, we want a piece of the action. Like, this book's doing really big things. That was my Hail Mary. I didn't know. I had unwavering faith that it was possible. And that's exactly what happened. It was only because I went out there and self-published the book and promoted it for years. 6 years after I self-published it, I got an offer for $1 million for the rights to The Miracle Morning and turned it down because I pulled out a calculator and I'm like, all right, this would be a great check, but I'd be kicking myself for the next 30, 40, 50 years of my life going, man, I got $1 million 30, 40 years ago, and now I'm getting checks every month for $300 when I should be getting checks for, $3,000 or $30,000. You know what I mean? So the same thing I'm applying to the movie. I'm going to self-distribute it. I'm going to work my butt off because I believe in the message and how it can help people, until now there's so much leverage that a big company comes out and says, dude, we want a piece of the action. And, at that point, again, I'll pull out the calculator and go, does it make sense? Can we reach more people with them or not? Does it make sense financially for my family? Right. But again, yeah. So to me, for everybody, self-publishing, self-distributing makes sense, and go out there and commit and work for years to reach the amount of people that deserve to hear your message. And then, and only then, do you revisit traditional distribution models, because now you have leverage.
That's great, man. That's so great. What you said you used I think it was called Bitmax, like for the self-distribution, but then Amazon was different. What was the path to getting on Amazon?
So Amazon Prime Video, it's just like you can self-publish a book on Amazon through Kindle Direct Publishing. Yeah. You can self-publish a film. So we're not even on there. It's been submitted. Because of COVID, it's taking months, I guess, to approve. So fingers are crossed that it's approved by the time the premiere happens. Yeah. If not, it is what it is. But
got it.
Yeah, okay. Amazon Prime Video, I believe, or Amazon Video Direct. Just Google, how to get your movie on Amazon, and it comes up.
Cool. That's great, man. This is awesome. Knowing what you know now, kind of final question or two. Knowing what you know now, what would be kind of your parting tips or piece of advice for people thinking about going through this process? So thinking about going through the process of turning their book into a movie.
Yeah, it's almost like, it's one of those things where I wouldn't change anything, the way that everything played out. The well, a couple things. So if you've got 100 grand or more, like, to make, like, and when I had to make the movie piece by piece, right? I didn't have a chunk of money to put up. I had to be like, all right, how much is it to do this thing? Okay, great. All right, here you go. Here's $2,000. Like, how much is it? All right, I'm going to put that on a credit card, right? Like, it was just over years. Um, if you have the money, you can go, there's a filmmaker, Nick Nanton, right? And Nick's become a good friend of mine. He didn't do my film. But I might work with him at some point because I love what he does. NickNanton.com, NickNanton. And you can pay him a fee, right? It's like, it used to be 100, I think it's 150 grand. And he can make a film for you. And it's killer quality. He's done stuff for Peter Diamandis and Joe Polish and a lot of well-known people. And then my filmmaker, I would read, Nick Conadera, is nickconedera.com, NickConedera, NickConedera, nickconedera.com. I don't think he has a set fee. I'm not exactly sure how he would structure his cost. But so if you have the money, hire a professional. But if you don't, right, if you're like, dude, I'm like, money is a little tight, literally I would reach out to and interview videographers. And I would I would do this, I like Nick, for example, he had never made a documentary. He had made a scripted film, and he was honest. He's like, Hal, this is a whole new ball of, like, I don't know how to make a documentary. Like, I know how to make a film. So yes, he's bringing that to the table. But I would honestly, if I were starting, like, doing it on a budget, I'd reach out to a bunch of videographers, right, in your city. And I would tell them what your idea for the project is, right? So first, get clear on, like, what your idea is, share it with them, and then interview, say, hey, how would you have a list of questions? How would you turn this concept that I'm explaining of this book into a story? What are your ideas? And I would interview a handful of videographers. And then I would, and then you'll find out if they have a creative bone in their body, or if they, some of them just know how to turn the camera on and film, right? Do they have an artistic side where they bring some vision and some idea and some creative juice? And you're like, ooh, that's a great idea. So that's honestly how I would start. And then I would just, I would just release attachment and have that unwavering faith, because our goal was to make the movie in 1 year. And I think we just hit 6 years. So, right. Like, I've never worked on a project for this long, nothing.
That's awesome. Well, I'm so excited for it to finally come out. Obviously the movie comes out on 12/12/2020. So the 8-year anniversary of The Miracle Morning, which was released on 12/12/12. Where can people go to get it, to purchase a ticket for the movie? And you talked about kind of the experience as a whole that's attached there. Like, where can people go to get it? And I know that they can get it before it happens, after the release and stuff like that. So where's the best place for folks to go? And then I'd say, let's take it a step further. And I think we have a lot of folks who listen to this podcast, watched this YouTube channel. If they're in our world, they know about The Miracle Morning. And so there's a decent chance that they're a raving fan. So for, like, the raving fans, in addition to purchasing the movie, like, what's the one or two most helpful things that they could do?
Yeah. You mean to enhance their Miracle Morning?
I'm talking about to help more people find out about the release.
Oh, I appreciate that. Yeah. We are lucky. We've got, like, an army of, millions of people that the Miracle Morning has changed their life. So they're like, we put out an application for a launch team like a year ago or more. And we had 1,500 people that are like, I'm sharing this thing, But anyway, so to join the live world premiere, it's 12/12/2020 at 12 p.m. Eastern time. So 9 a.m. in the West, 12 p.m. in the East. And go to miraclemorningmovie.com. And again, you'll be able to, buy the movie into infinity, but this is the only time that it's going to be this full Miracle Morning world premiere and live online experience with the Q&A and the implementation training and the new 30-day challenge, all of these things. And so, yeah, and we're trying to reach 100,000 people for this premiere, and then that will be the catalyst to it reaching, 1 billion people is our ultimate goal with the movie, the book, The Miracle Morning. And so if you would be a part of it, it would mean so much to me. And if you are already a Miracle Morning fan, please buy a ticket to the premiere at miraclemorningmovie.com. And then I'm sure there's share buttons on the site. It just went live yesterday. We're still working on it, but please share it. Share the trailer, share the site, invite your friends, because the only way we're gonna get to 100,000 people is through word of mouth. The same way the Miracle Morning book has reached millions of people. It's from people, hey, this thing is changing my life. It changed my life. You've got to check this out. And so if you can spread the word, it would mean so much to me. And if you're there, I would love to see you at the premiere.
100%. Guys, miraclemorningmovie.com. Whether you're listening to this in your car, you're watching the video, pull it up, grab a ticket, and grab the book. I mean, we've bought this book for hundreds of people in our audience and our students at Self-Publishing School. I recommend it all the time. As I say in a 3-second clip in the movie, the Miracle Morning changed my life. And that was the day that changed everything. It was the day I started the Miracle Morning. So I just wholeheartedly believe in Hal in this book. And I've only seen clips of the movie, so I'm excited to be joining as part of that world premiere alongside you guys and watching the movie. And I just can't wait to see it. I know it's going to be powerful. How your story's powerful. Thank you so much for coming on here. And guys, check out the movie. Check out the book. Hal, thanks again.
Thank you, Chandler. I love you, brother. And I'll see you at the premiere, if not sooner.
Yes, sir. Love you too. See you, bud.